There's a program, what is it called? The leadership program on here? Leadership Oregon. And both Danica Foster and Melanie Musial were selected to participate in that program. And it's great to, who else here? You all here? Yes. Oh, hey, there you are. Hey, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all that you do for this organization and setting such a great example for leadership here, because you do have an impact on us. I know I get impressed and I'm inspired by you, and I know that other people here do too. So it's a year-long program, I guess. And do you have any comments you want to make about it, or?
Yeah, I think we just had our first meeting on it, so I'm excited to continue on with it and see where it goes.
Yeah, well, we're excited for you, so congratulations. And we have 3 new commissioners that will be coming on next month. We've invited them here today. Who do we have? Tamiko, hello. Tamiko, how are you? Welcome. And who else is here? Do we have anybody else on? That's it. Okay. So welcome, and we'll try not to screw it up for you so we can see a nice meeting here.
Welcome.
So welcome. And then with that, I think we'll open the meeting. Adam, can you take a roll for us? Oh, you're going to do it this. Don't throw changes on you. I'll be up here.
Commissioner Curran.
Everything on. Good.
Here. I'm sorry. Here.
Commissioner.
Here.
Commissioner Tom Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Hayes.
Here.
Commissioner Miletus.
Here.
Chair Doherty.
Here. And next we'll have the minutes from the January 18th meeting. Is there any discussion on that? Good. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Sure.
Commissioner Floyd.
I move to approve the January 18th, 2024 commission meeting minutes as written.
I have a second.
Second.
Moved and second. Any other discussion? Laura, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Curran.
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd.
Yes.
Commissioner Tom Porter.
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes.
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus.
Yes.
Chair Doherty.
Yes. And next we're going to have Danelle. Are you going to chat with us this morning? Danelle's going to talk about the Oregon Beer and Wine Distributors Association update from the distributors. So thank you. And we got Steve Gibbs and Eric Forrest.
Ryan.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Doherty and Commissioner. Thank you so much for having us today. For the record, I'm Danelle Romaine. I'm the Executive Director of the Oregon Beer and Wine Distributors Association. And this is Steve Gibbs and Ryan Clubb from Columbia Distributing. We're really excited to come back and speak with you. The last time we presented was in July of 2022. So it's been a year and a half or so. So much has changed in the alcohol marketplace, and so much has changed at the commission. So we appreciate the invitation to come back and present. I'm just going to do a short overview of distributors, of our role in the 3-tier system, a little bit of a history, and then I'll turn it over to Steve and Ryan to talk specifically about what's going on in the marketplace. Our association is a membership organization representing the majority of beer and wine distributors in the state of Oregon. Our distributors employ over 3,000 Oregonians, and we share a very similar mission with the OLCC of both selling alcohol in moderation and also controlling the product for public health. So I'm thrilled to be a partner with you in both of those missions. Is our PowerPoint?
It's thinking about it.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Oh, you're driving it yourself.
Wow, look at who's driving us here.
I
Yeah,
can do that.
I didn't know that was possible.
All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to do just a quick history Some of you have seen this before from us, but I do think it's important to sort of go back to why are we here? Why does the three-tier system exist? What in the history of the United States, how did we get to this place with alcohol where the states are really in control of the regulation of this product? And as I know you know, in our early history in the United States in the 19th and early 20th century, alcohol was a major societal problem, and which was in big part because you had control from very, very large brewers of restaurants and taverns. And so there was this, what we call a tied house, a tie-in between a very large producer and a bar that led to just the proliferation of very cheap alcohol. That became such a huge problem that basically by 1918, it led to the passage of the 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, what we know as alcohol prohibition, which lasted from 1918 till about 1933. Prohibition of alcohol, as we know very well from history, did not stop people from drinking. I was just listening to some podcasts on this, and I've listened to a lot over the years on this subject. And one interesting statistic is that New York City during Prohibition had 32,000 speakeasies.
Wow.
32,000. Prohibition drove alcohol consumption underground. It led to the rise of organized crime. It led to thousands of deaths from unregulated and tainted alcohol. By 1933, when Prohibition was recognized as a failure and repealed by the passage of the 21st Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, that's when the regulation of alcohol was left to the states. And which gave birth to this slide that we have on the PowerPoint, the three-tier system in which our distributors operate today. The three tiers are the producer, the distributor, and the restaurant and grocery store, all of the on and off-premise retailers. Distributors represent thousands of producers and brands in an ever-changing market, and it really is ever-changing. I think Steve and Ryan will talk about that. We are experts in logistics and brand building. We bring a tailored set of products to retailers to satisfy the varying consumer needs. Producers in Oregon, if you're a brewer or winery, can choose to self-distribute. You don't have to use a distributor. But most people, when they get to a certain size, do use a distributor so that they can get their products to more locations in an organized way. Alcohol is not an ordinary grocery product. It's not potato chips. It's not cereal. It does require a complex set of laws to ensure public safety and promote moderate consumption. The multitude of laws that you enforce at the OLCC are critical to maintaining equal access to the marketplace for both brewers, wineries, cideries, distributors of all sizes, promoting fair pricing and moderate consumption. Oregon consumers enjoy one of the widest selections of beer and wine in the country because we are a wine and beer and cider producing state and spirits, as you know, and because of our fair marketplace. And I'd like to highlight just a few of Oregon's alcohol laws that are enforced by the OLCC to maintain that fair marketplace that I don't think are talked about very often that really should be. First one is in Oregon, whether you're a big box retail store or you're a corner mom and pop store, you're buying alcohol at the very same price as that large store. That is not true of any other grocery product. With other grocery products, there are quantity discounts. You know this if you go into a store, why pricing is different. That is absolutely prohibited in the alcohol space. There's no extra benefit to being a large distributor or a large supplier or a large retailer in the alcohol space. And so that is a really important law that allows for brands to compete on an equal playing field. Second one, in Oregon, distributors and brewers and wineries and all manufacturers are prohibited from giving anything of value to retailers. There's no financial assistance or tie-in between us and a retailer. We can't buy TVs for bars. We can't buy glassware for bars. We can't outfit a grocery store with their shelves. That is all prohibited. And that is specifically designed to ensure that nobody is buying their way onto a grocery store shelf. And it really allows for just this proliferation of awesome brands of all sizes that you see in Oregon grocery stores. You do not see that if you go into other states. So that is really something special that we have here. Finally, Oregon law on alcohol advertising already prohibits any advertising that encourages minors to drink, or that encourages the use of alcohol because of its intoxicating effect, or that encourages any excessive consumption. That is prohibited and is enforced by the OLCC. And that's just really a small snapshot of some of our laws on the books, laws that work very well to promote public health. And our distributors are partners with you to ensure that those laws are enforced. The next slide here. Lost my measure here.
Laura.
I wonder if it's because I moved Jen. There we go.
Thank you.
How's that? Mhm.
Perfect. So finally, before I turn it over to Steve and Ryan, this has been a very challenging time to be in the beer and wine sector. This is an essential part of our Oregon's economy and identity. Beer, wine, and cider generate more than $17 billion in economic activity for this state. And I know you've seen this before, but Oregon is home to 400 breweries, maybe a little less over the past year, unfortunately, 1,000 wineries, 1,300 vineyards, 70 ciders, 73 distributors, 10,000 restaurants, creating hundreds of good paying jobs. Alcohol is the third largest source of revenue for this state. However, beer sales fell 3% in 2023 and wine sales fell 2% in 2023. And those are trends that we are seeing continued in 2024.
Danelle, sorry to say that one more time. It was beer sales fell
3%
3%.
in 2023, wine 2%. If there's a downward trend of consumption that we are seeing continue in 2024.
Thank you.
It's not an easy time to be in this business. Draft beer sales, and that's the on-premises, the restaurants, are still down 30% post-pandemic. And that's not so easy. I mean, it's easy to understand why, because a lot of restaurants are just not open anymore or not doing well. Dozens of breweries and cideries have closed over this past year. And now more than ever, this sector does need the support of our regulators and policymakers. So with that, I will switch the slide, turn it over to Steve. Oh, shoot.
Sorry, good pause. And that's
Steve and Ryan.
So Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. So I'm Steve Gibbs, VP of Government Affairs for Columbia Distributing. Would love to just give you a little background. I know some of you have been out to one or others of our facilities. We would love to have you come back. You're always welcome, especially we're going to be neighbors and can be. So I think there's some new commissioners. So again, would open up and would love to have you come out. So Columbia has been around since 1935 in one form or another. We serve almost all of Oregon. We've got about 1,300 employees or teammates statewide. Our footprint also includes Washington State. So when you add that together, we're about 3,000 teammates. You can see some of our local brands that we love. I think Ryan's going to talk a little bit about Migration, but Migration, Full Sail, Crux, Deschutes, Two Towns, Rogue. So there's a number of great brands that we represent here in the state as well. I kind of want to point out that they're at the bottom just to give you an understanding. So we've got the 2023 annual daily averages. Just to give you an idea, we have almost 1,300 stops daily, and that's 139 routes throughout the state of Oregon, which ends up being over 130,000 cases that are delivered daily. And you can see by the map our branches in Springfield, Bend, Medford, Canby, and then also in Pendleton, and then we have cross docks that also service those other parts of the state. I would just highlight that I know you're in the process of building a new facility. We also are in the process in Medford. So I think our goal is mid-2025 or fall 2025 that will be in a new facility down there as well. Just a little more background that I like to share with folks when we're talking about our business is distributors it's an industry where you can have a family wage, where you can develop a career. So we had a retreat just a year ago, and our CEO asked how many of our senior leadership team, which there's about 80 people, those are directors and above, how many people started at an entry-level position. And entry-level means like a merchandiser. They're out there actually putting the cases on the shelves at the grocery store, or they're picking in the warehouse, or they're delivering. It was nearly 50% of our senior leaders started there. When you added sales associate, which is kind of that entry level at sales, it went up to almost 60%.
Wow.
And so there's growth there. And those are people that are putting kids through schools, that, you know, are buying houses, all those sorts of things. So I like to kind of tout that and make sure that people understand what this industry puts out there. So Danelle talked a little bit about just some of the difficulties. As you all know, it's been kind of a tough go right now. Over the last year or two, inflation has been very hard. Cost of ingredients. I always like to say and I think brewers they don't love this, but they'll tell you this as well. The most expensive ingredient in beer is taxes.
I thought you were going to say labor.
It's taxes, and it really is. And so, you know, looking at that, supply chain issues, employee shortages, all those sorts of things have really hit the industry hard over the last couple of years. When we're talking about taxes, in this industry, as you all know as well, we pay for the privilege of being in this industry. We pay a few times over for that. So not only state excise taxes, but federal excise taxes. I asked one of our financial folks to look at the corporate activity tax and how much we paid in 2023. That was almost $3 million. For that. So that's another tax that we have laid on there. You may be familiar with the Oregon Trucking Association has filed suit because of the mileage and weight tax for heavy trucks that deliver. So we're overpaying right now. I think it's 32% on that tax. Last biennial, it was 16%. We still haven't gotten that money back yet, and we don't know if we ever will. So again, just to give you an idea that it's tough out there right now. And I think Ryan's going to kind of give us a little drill down a little bit more to migration and kind of what they had to go through with the pandemic and what they're looking like now. So,
Can I ask you a question before you start there? What percentage overall does tax represent of your budget?
I don't know.
Chair Doherty, I believe tax is at least 40% of every beer. I know that we have some statistics on this, maybe even more.
Wow.
So it is the most expensive ingredient in a beer.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to get back with you.
Thank you. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for having us here today. My name is Ryan Clough. I'm a business development director at Columbia Distributing. I've worked for Columbia for 13 years, 15 years in the industry. So yes, seen quite a bit of change in my time. They brought me in today to talk about kind of our role with suppliers as well. I work directly with a lot of our supplier partners, migration being one of them. Kind of what we do beyond just, holding the laws in place, but how do we help our suppliers also grow their business? One of the things is especially for a lot of the craft breweries here in in Oregon, it'd be incredibly difficult for them to be able to get to every retailer, even for chain retailers that might require you to be in every single one of their stores. If they have a store in Brookings, Oregon, they don't care if you're in Portland, right? They expect you to be able to be in those stores. So it limits the ability for some of our craft partners without the help of a distributor to be able to get to those spots. For our retail partners as well, we at Columbia Distributing have 57 different breweries that we represent in Oregon. When you add in cideries, seltzers, other malt-based alcohols, that jumps up to 95. Throw on wine and non-alcoholic products, you can see how pretty quickly it'd be tough for a retail store to meet with 150 different entities. So we become that bridge where it allows for our supplier or brewery partners to have a greater access to market while also helping our retail partners have a more efficient business that allows them to have a greater selection of products. So specifically, I want to talk about our partnership with Migration Brewing, one of a fantastic brewery right here in Portland. Started in 14 years ago. 4 folks from kind of around the country, but most of them had ties here in Oregon. Wanted to make a brewery in Portland. The founders, when they first started the business, did everything from production, brewing, planning, logistics, to delivering the product to retail accounts. They were able to use that model to grow themselves a really great grassroots business. And in 2017, they were ready to kind of jump up and have greater access to markets, expand their business across Oregon and into Washington. So through relationships we had with Eric, one of the founders, we ended up sitting down with them. We're lucky enough to really click on what we were looking for as a partner on both sides. And in 2017, Migration signed a partnership with Columbia Distributing. For Columbia, we got an awesome brand with local roots that, again, had a lot of credibility. For them, they got the ability to have a greater access to different markets, for us to be able to amplify their voice across multiple different areas. So it really became a fantastic partnership from the get-go. Through that partnership, Migration today was able to build out a large production facility on Gresham, a second brew pub in Northeast Portland, multiple different pop-ups. So it's really truly everything, not just getting the beer from A to B, but being able to amplify the business, being able to take off some of the pressure of planning and the strategy, so they can work on different things from the marketing side, like these pop-ups, that really has grown their business into one of the premier Oregon breweries. It wasn't always easy, right? We can imagine 3 years ago was really, really difficult, especially for our craft brewing partners. Craft breweries tend to be more heavy in on-premise and draft sales. So when they lost that route to market, it became really difficult for a lot of our partners. Luckily, we were able to help folks like Migration pivot their business pretty quickly into a more package-heavy, off-premise based business, which for a lot of folks was the difference of being able to make it or not make it. As we talked about a little bit, unfortunately, even those that made it through the pandemic, it's still been very, very difficult on them. We had 30 different brew pubs or breweries that closed in 2023 in Oregon, sadly. So it's still very, very difficult. On-premise business is still down about 30% versus where it was pre-pandemic. So, again, it's a very difficult time, especially for a lot of the local brands. And from a total business standpoint, per SIPS, the Pacific region is lagging behind the rest of the country. So the Pacific region for SIPS is Oregon, Washington, California, Alaska, and Hawaii. Spirits are down about 9.9% versus the rest of the country being down about 1.5%. For syndicated IRI data, wine is for 2023 was down about 7.5%, and beer was down about 4.2% for Oregon Foods. Pretty unique scenario in my 15 years in the business to see all 3 categories down. It obviously leads to that there's less consumption today. There's less, people are choosing not to consume or choosing to consume less. So difficult time for folks, but the industry is still alive and well and thriving.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Just going to close by talking about a couple different policy issues in the alcohol space. First one, liquor privatization. This is the perennial issue that we're all facing. The distributors have led the opposition campaign against 3 initiative petitions trying to privatize the state of Oregon since the state of Washington privatized in 2012. Fortunately, all we have to do is look north to know that that was a complete disaster with much higher prices for consumers. Selection has plummeted in terms of products for consumers, and there are continuing public safety issues. But that is an issue that is just not going away and does need to continue to be top of mind for everybody, especially for folks serving on the OLCC. And that leads to your investments in the new warehouse and continuing to modernize the liquor control system. It is vital that you keep up as a commission with consumer trends, that you have a modernized warehouse, that the liquor stores are friendly and welcoming to Oregonians, because if those investments are not made by the state of Oregon, you are ripe for somebody else coming in and doing this business. So I think everything you are doing, Commissioner Doherty.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think Faye has a question.
I did, but it was really with regards to the earlier invitation, I believe, extended by Mr. Gibbs. Steve, thank you. I think that Ms. Shatkin, our government liaison, spearheaded a really amazing event some time ago, whereby she invited the legislators and the commissioners to tour that facility. That, I think, would provide a wonderful insight to the new commissioners and provide me with a refresher on the enormity of that production. So I'm going to ask that Ms. Shatkin, Chair, try and coordinate another one of those events.
A great idea. Thank you, Faye. That's my thoughts as well. So sorry to interrupt you now. So thank you, Faye.
Thank you. I just finally on that investments, it is really important that Oregonians understand why the state of Oregon is in this business. And I don't think they do understand. And you have a great story to tell. And there is a ton of revenue that is produced by the business that you are running that is going to all of our awesome programs in this state. And that message needs to get out there to the public. So I hope that you will continue to do that. Finally, promoting moderation and enforcement of the alcohol laws. We have a close relationship with your staff. You have excellent staff here at the OLCC. We appreciate everything that they do. Over 90% of adults of legal drinking age drink alcohol responsibly. They drink in moderation according to the U.S. dietary guidelines. And we come to you as a partner in addressing addiction issues, which are separate from those who drink in moderation. And I'd just like to make a couple of points here. Oregon policy and our resources devoted to addiction should focus on the 6 to 10% of adults who are battling with addiction. And we want to be your partner in ensuring that those funds are focused on that population of folks to get them the help that they need. We know we simply cannot price people out of alcohol. And that's been in the news recently. And we have many studies over the years saying you cannot simply raise a tax or a price and expect that people who are addicted are not going to be addicted simply because you price them out of a particular product. They will switch products, they will go to other substances. And I think that is very well documented. We support more of the revenue that is raised from beer and wine and from distilled spirits going towards folks who are suffering from alcohol addiction. We want to be your partner in that. A tiny, tiny percentage of that money, less than 3%, is going to those folks now. And it's very unclear how that money is used. And we absolutely want to get to the bottom of this so that the money that is raised from the privilege of being in this business is going towards those who are suffering from addiction or towards prevention programs to prevent someone else from having an addiction in the first place. So with that, switch the slide here.
Can I ask you a question? Please. Do you have some accurate information? I don't think they're not accurate. That information about that 3% and where everything else is going. Do we have an accurate account where all the dollars go?
And your staff has it. And
Okay.
this is from the OLCC presentation to the legislature every year.
So,
And yes, and I know the OLCC is working on even more detail right now on that.
okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That is what we've presented. We're happy to chat or take questions. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for your work.
Appreciate it.
Any questions or?
No, this is helpful, and I think it's good that we're
for the new folks coming on, I think Faye's suggestion was great to get back out to actually see it because it's next door to our facility. And I know I think we got to the main warehouse, but maybe the Wilsonville facility too, we could check out. Yeah, thank you for the offer, and it'll be good to get everybody out there. So thanks for everything.
Hopefully you come back more frequently than every couple. We need you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
very much.
Alicia has a question.
Can I ask,
Alicia,
1 second, sorry.
yes, Alicia.
can't get away so quickly. No, first I want to thank you as a new commissioner. This is very helpful. I think I've waited long enough and Faye and others have asked my questions, but just to reiterate, I would love a tour, and I was looking at, I live in Eugene, so maybe getting to hit the Springfield as, you know, doing more than one would be helpful. So really appreciate the fact I was going to ask, and it's already been asked, but the breakdown of those taxes. I mean, that is a huge amount going to taxes, and maybe we can get a little more understanding of how much are going to prevention, and in general, how much of that is going through our public health services at our counties would be of interest to me. And if it's out there, just point me in the right direction. I appreciate it. Again, really appreciate the presentation and your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you. We got a compliance overview.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull it up right now, Shannon, or you want us to talk first? Do you want me to pull it up right now, or you want to talk?
Yeah.
Going down. Look at this. This is something new here.
We've had it. We just
Never used it.
I like that. Didn't have an operator who knew how to do it.
hey.
We need some training.
Didn't need to do that.
Modernization.
Modernization. Andy, way to embrace it.
You got the power right there.
Good morning, commissioners. Chair Doherty, for the record, my name is Shannon Hoffeditz. I'm the Director of Marijuana Compliance, and I'm here with my colleagues, Director of Alcohol Compliance, Andrew Jurek, Director of Analytics and Research, TJ Sheehy, and Director of Administrative Hearings, Melanie Nusil. And we are excited to be here today to provide you an overview of the alcohol and marijuana compliance program and how it works. There's a lot of work that we do behind the scenes. It doesn't necessarily rise to the level of reaching the commission level or reaching the commission meetings. And so we're excited to talk to you about what we do behind the scenes with our licensees out in the field, out in the street with our licensees. So with that, Andy and I are going to start with alcohol and marijuana compliance, and I'll hand it over to Andy.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Director, thanks. Appreciate the opportunity to get a voice with you guys to showcase some of the work that the compliance folks do. But I'd like to introduce over here against the wall, some of our managers are out in the field. We have Mark Smith. He's the alcohol Portland manager. We have Scott Yox. He's the alcohol manager in Bedford. Michelle Kate. She's the marijuana manager in Portland. We have Gary Wilcox, who's the Bend manager. He oversees marijuana and alcohol. Mike Bloom, also an alcohol marijuana for the Eugene region. Jim Hunter is manager for the marijuana program in Medford. And last but not least, Joe Fulan, he's the manager for alcohol and marijuana in the Salem.
Thank you all for being here.
These folks, these managers and their staff are really the ones that are out there doing the workforce. The marijuana inspectors, the regulatory specialists are out there in the fields doing the inspections. The alcohol folks are out there at night in the bars. They were out this weekend during the Super Bowl. We ran some minor decoy programs. So they're out there doing the work all the time. So it's a great opportunity to showcase that. And I want to publicly thank them and their staff for all the hard work that they do. And we're going to showcase some of that work throughout this presentation. So just to give you an idea, our regulatory specialist, the authority for the marijuana falls under the Adult and Medical Use of Cannabis Act. That gives us the administrative authority and some limited criminal authority to enforce that. On the alcohol side, it's the
the Liquor Control Act. And that provides that, it gives us authority for administrative actions over our licensee and our permittee holders.
I'm going to talk about the marijuana call center and the work that they do. We have 4 staff in the call center that do an outstanding job responding in real time to questions regarding our recreational marijuana program. They answer marijuana related questions and are key staff to answering any questions when there are compliance bulletins sent out to our licensees, and most commonly results of rule changes that go out. And so if there ever needs to be any clarity or clarifying questions answered from any of our marijuana related licensees or from the public or from any of our partners, the call center is there to add clarity and to provide information to those folks. We also have a member of our call center on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to respond to any law enforcement related complaints or questions that come in. For example, if they have a traffic stop, our law enforcement partners pull over a vehicle and there's marijuana with any alcohol or marijuana related ID tags that they need clarifying information on, our member of our call center is available, like I said, 24/7 to answer those law enforcement related calls. And that is for law enforcement only, that they respond. We actually have a special phone number for them to call that is for law enforcement only. And then any of the other related calls are answered during business hours.
The areas of responsibility for our regulatory specialists is we look at it with our, can kind of look at it as the 4 pillars. We work with the licensee and permittees and take the necessary actions to ensure the safety of the customers, employees, and the general public. And we do that through education, inspections, complaints, and investigations. So education is our first step with our licensees. We conduct training whenever requested. We go out in the field. We'll do training, ID training, how to identify visibly intoxicated persons, either at the licensee location or we do hold annually ID training, so the licensees and their staff can come to our offices and we can conduct the training. And then another step through education part is if there is a violation, we try to get voluntary compliance in a fashion where we provide further education. We basically give them verbal instructions for the lower level fixable violations.
And in addition, that all holds true on the marijuana side. But in addition, we also have what's called the verification of compliance program. If there is a fixable violation that the licensee can fix within a certain amount of time that does not rise to an immediate or imminent level of public safety, we have the ability to work with them with this program that gives the licensee a amount of time to correct the violation, at which point it becomes essentially a verbal instruction and gets filed. Their file does not rise the level of violation. The other thing that we do in terms of education, like I discussed on the previous slide, we have the call center that licensees can call at any time and ask for guidance. If the call center is not able to answer any of the licensee's questions, they refer it out to our field staff to so they can work with the licensees to help resolve the issue at hand.
And we have we conduct ourselves with inspections, and we have a program in alcohol. When a licensee is issued a new license, we have a first call program where our inspectors are assigned to that licensee, and they go out within 45 days, and they basically, it's a check-in, and we introduce ourselves, let them know that they're their inspector or their regulatory specialist, and if they have any questions, they need any training, they need signage, they need any advice on how to conduct their business, anything that we can offer up, that's the opportunity to do that. And we just don't do it during that first call program. We do it, continuously throughout the licensee. And then we also conduct premise inspections, and we do that every year. So we're having a lot of interaction with the licensee. Sometimes we have more. interaction just because there might be issues that we're trying to work through with them. And that's how we're conducting inspections with the licensees.
And then in the marijuana program, prior to a marijuana licensee being licensed, we have marijuana licensing inspectors that actually go out. They have an initial contact with the licensee or the applicant at that time to answer any pre-licensing questions, and to conduct an inspection of the premises to ensure that they are in compliance with all the requirements prior to their license being issued. In addition, we have our regulatory specialist that can go out and conduct inspections throughout the year at marijuana licensed premises. So it's essentially an audit to ensure that everything matches what's in the file is what is on hand at the licensed premises.
Now those, excuse me if I can interrupt, those inspections, are they regularly scheduled? Do they do once a year like the others, or is...
Chair Doherty, commissioners, unfortunately, they are very, very time consuming. And we do them as we can, but there's no schedule time period.
Okay.
The inspections, our CTS,
CTS is cannabis tracking system.
Cannabis tracking system. The team conducts metric audits and sends correspondence, and TJ Sheehy will conduct more information on that during his presentation. Regulatory specialists, we do conduct harvest inspections every year. There is a requirement that during the outdoor harvest, the licensees are required to notify through Metric. And what they will do is we'll go out and we'll conduct an inspection during harvest. So we'll get real live information, real-time information regarding the harvest and that the harvest is being done accurately. And then we also conduct, in conjunction with TJ's group, quarterly audit testing with the lab program. And so those are all pieces TJ will conduct further information on.
We receive complaints both on the alcohol and marijuana side, either through citizens complaints. We get information that's forwarded from law enforcement to us with an issue with the licensee, or it's discovered when the regulatory specialist or the inspector goes out and conducts either a premise visit or just stopping in. So we get complaints that way that are discovered. Or you get the licensees of other licensees telling on each other or complaining. So we follow up on those, and then we have the analytics and the research part, marijuana.
Yes, and TJ will hit on that a little bit more during his presentation.
And the last part of our roles and responsibilities is investigations, and that's where, we either a complaint or just something discovered, we follow up on, we conduct the investigation, and we determine if a violation is there or all the elements have been met. And then we write up that report and we forward it to IHD. And if it's just some training and some verbal instructions, that basically gets filed and stays with that licensee in that file. The other way is if there is a violation, that's completely investigated, and then it is also written up and forwarded to our hearings division. And then Shannon will talk more about the VOC for marijuana. But before she says that, good news is I am working on a program for VOC for alcohol too, so that's coming.
You knew I was going there. You knew I was going there. How close are we?
Well, good question, Commissioner Floyd. With everything we got going on, it's going to be put into the workflow. We have camp as a priority right now. So we're putting a lot of energy to that, but I'm going to work I'm going to get a small group together and we're going to start working on it as we can.
It's a great education first
It is.
approach program.
And after seeing it work with the marijuana side, I'm assured we can make it work with the alcohol side too.
Good.
As Andy said, verification of compliance program and the marijuana program has proven to be very effective with our licensees. It gives the licensees a chance to work with us, the inspectors, while they're out in the field, and really collaborate together. That's what I think I like about it, is the collaboration, and it shows our licensees that we are willing to work with them, let them correct the violation and move on. So, and then the other piece of that is if we work with them, they just clearly don't correct the issue, the deficiency, it does then rise to the level of the violation. So we do give them a chance to correct it, to fix it. There is even that opportunity to extend for a period of time, but then once if the licensee is not willing or just cannot correct the violation, we will look into that, but it would rise to the level of a violation at that point.
And just for clarity, we're talking about lower level violations. This isn't, just for everybody hearing this isn't for, we call them category 1 violations. These are, the big ones, serving the minors, correct?
Correct.
We're talking about those lower level violations where we can have an education first approach on.
Yes, these are violations that we've identified that are not a serious threat to public safety, that are correctable and fixable and whatnot. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep me posted, please.
Okay. Yeah. We hold for a question. Mr. Javon Porter, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Since I have you on the hot seat, what's the protocol for a licensee who has deceased and possibly has a current or old stockpile of product?
Yeah, Commissioner Chair Doherty, we have to evaluate those on a case-by-case basis, and we do have rule authority that maybe my colleague Melanie can we both can address together, but we have come across these. Each situation is a little bit different, but there is a rule that states that if a licensee does pass and there is product on premises, that we do have the ability to seize that product. Is that correct, Melanie?
Yeah, there's that in marijuana specifically. There's a rule, I have the one off the top of my head, but it talks about we have the ability to do an order. So we would have to issue an order talking about how to handle that marijuana. We could dispose of it, but there would need to be a notice and an order first that would go out.
So may I speak with you, Melanie, later?
Sure. It's helpful to have, if it's a marijuana one, we want to have Shannon on, or if it's a alcohol, we want to have Andy to talk about that too. And we probably would want to have licensing involved as well, because could be potentially a licensing aspect too.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is that just on, good question, Commissioner, is that just on the marijuana side, or is that on alcohol too? That wouldn't be on alcohol, right?
No,
we own it.
Well, and some of it we do, but if it's beer and wine, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's, you don't.
Yeah. What do we do with the marijuana if we seize it?
We would put in there, usually in our orders, we put a notice for seizure and destruction. So it would just be, we would just destroy it.
Oh.
There are other ways that we could. So if there are, that's the usual way, but there are other options there too. When we're talking about the case by case basis, if there's another interested party, we can figure that out.
Okay.
You're correct.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
Chair Doherty, I think the difference is that marijuana product is tracked. So there is an accountability system that we have to be able to show where that marijuana is and where it goes. Whereas on the alcohol side, we don't have the tracking system.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to go back. We're going to talk a little bit about statistics in the compliance program. So the marijuana call center, I talked about the number of calls that they receive. You can see here that they received over 8,700 emails and responded to that many as well, and then over 1,000 phone calls. But education is key here. You can see the number of inquiries that they've taken care of. And I want to take a moment to by name acknowledge Christy McCoy in the call center, Stephanie Day Goodman, Mandy McDonough, and Caitlin White. You can see, like I have mentioned, we're doing a great job communicating to our marijuana partners and our licensees. So I want to just publicly acknowledge them.
It's quite a lot. And we're getting to all of these. So you say that received and responded, we don't have a backlog of anything. These are all.
They're all,
still-
yeah, they are all real live, real time, up to date.
Well done.
And that's just 2023.
That is calendar year 2023.
Gosh.
And just 4 folks in the call center.
Yes.
No kidding.
I thought that was the beginning of the program. That's crazy.
Yeah, good job.
Very good job.
We're going to go into statistics, and I want to talk about what the definitions are, and then Andy will talk more. But so, and this is through Case Manager. These are all the sources. All sources is all of the complaints that we've received. So that includes anonymous complaints. When someone complains or forwards a complaint and they wish to remain anonymous. Non-anonymous complaints, those are, we know who the complainant is and they wish to come forward, and or it's one of our agency partners. So we know who the complainant is. We have cases that are discovered through compliance action. And that's either through an inspection, an investigation, or through one of our minor decoy partners. And then we also have the outcomes that you'll see there that are the closed no action, refer to AHD. The closed no action, that means that there was no relevance to the complaint or there was no complaint found. Referred to AHD is referred to Administrative Hearings Division, which is my colleague Melanie's division down there. Those are inspectors conducted investigations. They authored a report, they conducted their investigation, and then we forwarded our case to the Administrative Hearings Division, which Melanie will talk about the information in more detail in her statistics. We have cases that were referred to law enforcement partners where there was evidence of illegal or non-licensed activity, which is outside of OLCC's scope. And therefore, we referred the case to our law enforcement partners. And then we have the cases that were closed with verbal instructions that there was evidence of a violation, but the investigation was closed as the violation was quickly or already corrected.
So we're a third of them. That's great.
So if you look at this slide and the next one, I'm not going to go too deep down into the numbers, but yeah, you can click to the next one. You can see that the work that the inspectors are doing, and look, you know, for example, discovered, which that means they're going out and they're finding it on their own. You know, they take enforcement action. They're closing almost all of them either through no action or they're given verbal instruction, get referred to HD, and you can, that just continues down the line. You know, we had 6,544 total cases for alcohol in 2023. That's statewide. And I have some math, so it didn't work out right, but Shannon ran the numbers. What that means, and the big picture is that 94% of the cases were all closed with no action or verbal instruction, which means only 6% went to H. Now, I can't tell you of that 6%, what was eventually carried on, and then you guys saw the end result, but it's very, very low. So we are working very hard to do the education piece. And I think with that work, it's going to be very easy to implement VOC because we're already really doing it. We're just going to make it more formal now. So it's exciting to see these numbers, and it's exciting to see that, you know, the work that the inspectors are out there doing day in and day out. So.
How is the VOC being received in the field?
I'm sorry?
How's that being received in the field? You know, just our educating first before citations.
I think the licensees are appreciative of it. You know, we're not, our goal is not to go out there and drop the hammer per se, but we want these businesses to be successful. And I've had a philosophy when I was a manager, or even when I was an inspector or manager now, in this position, is all you have to do is follow the rules. Follow the rules, everything will be fine. If you have a problem, ask, we'll help you. We're there to help. That's our priority.
I'll chime in too. Like VOC was probably one of the things that I think was huge. Like, and that was such a heavy lift from everybody for years. Like, it took so long to do all that. And then I know, like on the cannabis side, there was legislation, and everyone worked together. And I was just speaking at a cannabis industry event, and it was, that was one of the things that I think everybody like really recognized what a big deal that was, how much it helped with frontline staff and with the industry folks, because stuff doesn't always need to rise to the commission level, or it can just get fixed. And I think for people in the industry that don't recognize what a big deal that is, hopefully they do. And I think, as you said, on the alcohol side, it's almost like you're already doing it. So I think just having the agency get credit for already doing it is more what I would want it implemented, just so there's like a name to the fact that, hey, a lot of this stuff is just like trying to keep everybody safe, and the agency working with the industry and vice versa, and everybody making sure you have a good time safely. So I think it's great.
And I also think it's important too that the managers do a really good job of keeping Andy and I posted. If there's just a licensee that's not willing to work with us, I mean, the goal is to get the licensees into compliance, and most of them will voluntarily do that. But unfortunately, there's just that number of licensees that just don't have the willingness or the ability to move into compliance. And unfortunately, those are some of the cases that are brought before you.
Yeah, we learned that the hard way.
And on the marijuana side, same definitions. You can see that 97 of the cases that were referred to AHD were minor decoy operations, and the number that were through the verification compliance program. And then 95% of the marijuana cases were closed with no action or verbal instructions, and 5% of the marijuana cases were referred to our administrative hearings division program. So of those 5%, those are the cases that are brought before you, are the cases that you see are within that 5%.
So I got a quick question before we move forward. Is there kind of transparency with our on-site inspections? Is there a log or a record every time an inspector makes an on-site visit? Do we have a log of that?
Commissioner Floyd, Chair Doherty, on the marijuana side, I believe that I do leave the information is left with them. I know that I do get a copy of that.
So does the commission, does the agency here have a log or a record every time an inspector goes to a licensee's premises? Do you have that as the director of
I see what you're saying.
NJ side of things? And Andy, do you have that as director of?
Yeah, so for alcohol, we capture that through, if we do a first call, there's basically a case number assigned to it. So we have that tracking. If there's an inspection of some sort, we have, a case number is assigned to that. And if they're just out and about and they just do a premise visit, they'll leave their business card and then they track it in their field notebook, which we keep for 7 years. So we have a log, and everything that the inspectors on both sides are doing is in their field notebook. So
okay, so
we do have a log of that.
Formal or informal visits, you'll know as the director of alcohol. You'll know as the director of marijuana anytime there's a site visit.
Yes, if the caveat to that is if they're just walking through and doing a walkthrough, it'll be in their notebook, but it's not captured in these compliance stats.
That's more informal.
I think sometimes and I don't want to speak for everybody. I know that like a lot of the commissioners sometimes will get calls from licensees or whatever. And so I think it's always good to have a log, just because what I've found is kind of like what we're talking about. You get a call from a licensee, and then I've learned, I'll call Shannon, I'll call somebody at the agent, and they can kind of look into it or whatever, because I think it's tough, especially for the new commissioners. I mean, we get calls to know what to do. And so I think the more there is a record and there's a supervisor or point of contact to direct those things to, the better, because I think sometimes the public doesn't understand what the commissioners can and can't do and what level it goes to. So for me, it's been helpful to be able to direct them to Shannon or whoever's in charge and just get it worked on. So I think more information on those things is always helpful because everyone in my experience has been doing the right thing. So I feel good.
You have the power. I have the power. Good morning. TJ Sheehy, Director of Analytics and Research, as Shane said. So Melanie and I are kind of going to be the bookends of what happens before it gets to compliance in the marijuana case and after. So I'll go to what we in the Analytics and Research group do on marijuana compliance as part of these same sorts of educating into compliance or educating in lieu of compliance efforts. So analytics is the A of PACE, and it's an eclectic group of specializations. So we have a lot of major complicated technical topics within the marijuana program. So the packaging and labeling program, which includes pre-approval of labels of marijuana products, as well as ensure that what's out in the market is one, what was pre-approved and hasn't been changed, and two, meets those labeling requirements on an ongoing basis. The laboratory compliance program, so that is making sure that OHA sets the testing rules and requirements, but we have more or less the entirety of the supply chain. And so we're the ones actually applying those rules, making sure that licensees throughout the supply chain are doing what they're supposed to do, that those products are tested and verified, as well as when there is something that goes wrong, as I'll say later, related to product safety, we also begin those recalls and put those products back. Hemp concentration limits, obviously hemp issues have been a big area of focus over the last few years, potentially more so even in the future if some of the legislation this year passes. And so we also oversee not only now what's in our market, the OLCC market, but also general market throughout Oregon related to intoxicating hemp products. And then we have Metric. So we are the primary people who are in Metric every day, making sure that things are being done correctly, evaluating that data, triaging what issues there are, answering questions, all those sorts of things. So we have 5 Metric specialists who work on those areas. Packaging and labeling is a 2-person program. Laboratory compliance is a 1-person program, and hemp concentration limits is a 1-person program. So we have a lot of varied issues that we deal with. Really good, smart people doing that work, and we're a small but mighty group of folks. All of those areas above have specific phone and email lines where licensees or members of the public can call, email, for those very specific questions. So if you have something about packaging and labeling, you know where to go. If you have something about Metric, you know where to go. And so we're able to, we don't track the level of detail that the marijuana call center does, but a lot of the time something will come in there and get referred to us or come into us directly, and we can resolve those issues before they become a real issue. And one example of this educate into compliance philosophy in the marijuana program, especially, there's a lot of new things happening every single year. And so a lot of the effort is making sure that people know what the lay of the land even is. And so an example of that is those hemp concentration limits that were passed by law in HB 3000. We adopted those rules at the end of 2021, and they came into place in June of 2022. But that's a huge market. That's a bit of a black box, frankly. And so we've done a lot of work to make sure that the businesses that are operating in Oregon, who don't necessarily follow this legislation that closely, follow our administrative rules that closely, know what the bounds are that they need to operate in. And so we did a survey. We looked around online because a lot of these products are e-commerce sites, things you can just buy online. And we did a check to see what products are they selling. Are they the ones that they should be selling or not? And are they selling into Oregon? And so we sent out to date 35 letters to those companies, identifying for them what products could be problematic and don't fall within the bounds of our rules, and working with them to put mechanisms in place so that those products aren't being shipped to Oregon. Obviously, with hemp, it's a national federal ecosystem, so we can't control what's happening in other states, but we can make sure that the citizens of Oregon are and children especially are not getting access to products that are unsafe or they shouldn't have access to. And so now, once we winnowed that down, now is where we get more into potential formal compliance actions, where if they still haven't heeded those calls after 2 successive letters and they're still selling those into Oregon, that's the progressive enforcement philosophy. So spotlight on a couple of more specific things we do within the analytics group. So I mentioned briefly recalls. So we've put a lot of work and thought into how do we make sure that we're able to, because we don't have the FDA, we don't have a lot of the federal structure that most other foods and goods have. And so we have to fill in that gap to a much greater degree. And so we put in a lot of work, and David Staniford specifically has put in a lot of work to create more structure in how we evaluate these things, how we keep things consistent and make sure that we're able to do all those things while still being nimble and making sure that products aren't on the market that shouldn't be on the market. And so since 2021, we've instituted 24 product recalls. Some of those are things that we've maybe done as a mandatory recall, other things where we worked with the licensee because they recognized an issue and wanted to get products off the market. But we're able to use Metric to know where everything is at any given time and either directly notify retailers, for example, you have this list of products that need to be taken off the shelf, or provide that to the manufacturer of the product so that they can then act swiftly to get that product off the market. The other thing not covered in this slide is what Shannon spoke to, which is audit testing. So you all adopted a rule at the end of 2022, and we've implemented over the course of 2023 and now into this year of round robin testing for potency. As we all know, there's a big problem of potency hunting and potency, especially in these market conditions, being a big driver of what can be on the shelf. And so there's a lot of incentives to maybe not being, not having that number be the most accurate thing, but be the highest thing. And so we now have the ability to have a very objective criteria to go out, test it with multiple labs and say that product's not 35% THC, it's 25 THC, or that's not 40% THC, that's 12% THC, and get that relabeled. And so those sometimes will result in compliance action if there's actual adulteration that drove that THC high, but not always formal compliance. Sometimes it's really just incentive structures of shifting that from get the highest result to get the most accurate result. And we're already seeing dividends with that we've been doing. And now we're getting structure around the compliance to do on a quarterly basis to create some predictability and consistency so that licensees know that we're out there doing this work. And then on back to recalls specifically, again, sometimes it results in compliance action if there's, an adulteration of a product that took place and that's why it's not safe, versus there was an example of a licensee who missed a step in their manufacturing of a carbonated beverage and the bottles were at risk of exploding. That's not a compliance issue, but it's obviously something that shouldn't be on the market and they recognized and needed to get off the market because of that issue. So it really is very case dependent on whether there's fault or whether it's a fixable issue again, and we can focus on resolving it. Now, within the metric area, 2 major components of what we do are what we call auto warnings and then metric audits. So I'll speak about each of those. In general, we talk about metric as one leg of the 3-legged stool of marijuana compliance. So the 3 legs are metric, camera coverage, and then the inspectors and the work that Shannon and Andy talked about. So because everyone has to have their inventory up to date every single day, they have to do things like log all their sales, log all their transfers. We're able to see everything in the supply chain and course correct licensees where there is issues. Now, the downside of seeing everything is that we see a lot. And so it's not all going to be serious issues. And so there's a lot of triage and making sure that we can resolve issues, before they become systemic issues, before they become really huge, harder things to fix. But then also there are things that are going to be so serious that we see it once and it goes straight to compliance. So it's really, again, very case dependent about what types of things we see and what we do as a result. But the focus always is get them into compliance and get it corrected and fixed and work with the licensees. And so the two ways, or the two major ways we do that within the metric program is audits and automated emails. And so you can see the numbers there. So in 2023, the 5 metric specialists that we have, and we only had 5 for the latter part of the year, but between those 5, we were able to do more than 1,000 audits of metric data. So around 45 or so % of all the licensees that we have got some sort of that light touch audit where we evaluate their metric data. And I'll go a little bit more into detail of what that looks like in the next slide. But of those, 80%, more than 80%, were verbal instruction or no issues identified. I would put a caveat and say those are more VI than no issues. We usually see something, but that 80% shows that, again, not very many of those go to compliance. And then, as they said, of the ones that go to compliance, those can still be resolved through VI or VOC or other things. It's just when we identify something that goes to compliance, those 20%, it just needs another look, a more in-depth look, a conversation between an inspector and a licensee. So that doesn't mean that 20% of these result in compliance action. It's just 20% of them go for that deeper look. And then automated emails, I'll talk about those in a couple slides, but more than 8,000 of those went out. We've been doing those since July 2018. And those are things like, just based on the metric data, there's an issue, something's wrong. We don't know if it's a compliance issue or a data entry issue or whatever else, but it's a tap on the shoulder to the licensee to say, fix this or look at this. So specifically to auto warnings, we have a core set of things that we look at that we can see purely based on the metric data is a violation of. And so the example there at the bottom is someone logs a sale of 12 grams being sold of extractor concentrate to a consumer. That's more than 10. 10 is the limit. So we know in and of itself that's an issue. We don't know if it's because they accidentally put 12 instead of 2. We don't know if they actually sold 12, but it's a tap on the shoulder again to that licensee to say, look at this sale. We're actually able to specify this is the receipt number. You have access to go look at it and evaluate what happened so that they can look at it and either correct it if it was a data entry mistake or put procedures into place so that it doesn't continue to be a problem. Sure. And we also have, again, that email that my staff monitor so that if someone does have a question of like, why did I get this email? They can respond right back and ask, and we will work with them to evaluate what happened and potentially why and how to correct it.
So the system automatically kicks out that email when it spots something. Is this?
We use the system, but it's not a built-in feature of Metric. It's something that we have used our hook into Metric to do. And so we built these in July of 2018, worked with our IT department to do it and code these specifically based on our understanding of our rules and laws. And write these queries and other things to generate the email. So they do go out automatically every morning at like 6 a.m. or something. And it's things that we've had in place since July of 2018. So we're able to use Metric as the mechanism, but it's not a built-in feature of Metric.
Good. Thank you.
And then on metric audit, so we do these as random audits. So we pick a random set of licensees each week. And then within that, we pick random activity within the last few months, as well as some specified things that we look at, like those flags that I mentioned before. And we'll just look at them and make sure everything was done correctly. So we'll look at 5 random transfers. And if it's a transfer from, for example, a producer to a retailer, we'll look at the items that were on that manifest, that transfer, and make sure it was tested correctly. Is it stuff that the producer has the right to make and transfer? Is the person who is doing the transport an employee of the license? Should they have been working on behalf of that license? Those sorts of things. And we'll also see things like a large waste event. And so we can do things like ask them for clarification of like, why did this get wasted? Or can you explain what was going on that made you record it in that way? And so again, we can do that triage of what's an issue that we can notify them of? This isn't quite the right way to do it, but it's fixable, and you can, implement this change. Versus, wow, this really needs an additional layer of review, maybe an interview with the employees because it's concerning, and that goes off to compliance. And so when we're done with the audit, we actually send a letter to the managers and owner of the license, which we know because those people are listed in Metric with their emails, and we can say, we send them a letter that itemizes, here's what we saw, here's what you should fix. And we've actually heard that a lot of licenses, because again, we've been doing this since late 2018, early 2019, has now become a predictable piece that they know they're going to get these. And so often what we've heard is licenses will actually now for managers build like clean audits into sort of reward mechanisms for their managers, so that there's, again, that incentive structure of being compliant, incentivizing compliance and disincentivizing non-compliance. And then when we do find an issue, which it tends to be things like they're an employee without a worker permit in Metric and they need to get them permitted, or they have a permit but don't have it entered the right way, or incorrect chain of custody between items where they took 10 to make 5 or 5 to make 10 or something like that, where sometimes it's an issue of, again, data entry, not understanding fully the rules, or something that they just need to do differently and better. If it's a one-off sort of thing, we can just let them know. But if it's a systemic thing and they've been doing it for a long time, what we'll also do is a re-audit a few months later. We tell them, you need to fix this, and then we revisit them 3 months later in Metric. And if they still haven't fixed it, then it goes to compliance. If they have fixed it, congratulations, thank you for taking our advice and doing it correct. So that's a lot. But it's a lot of areas that we've been able to use Metric, especially because we see so much, to really do that education first and progressive enforcement. I think that's it.
Morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Melanie Uzio, Director of Administrative Hearings Division. I'll echo what TJ said. Administrative Hearings is also a small but mighty team. When we are at full staff, it's 12 staff members on the team. There's 3 administrative support, 1 person that just does all of our hearings and helps coordinate those, and then 2 compliance specialists that work on basically tracking the case and keeping it going from when a charge letter is issued, getting those notices sent out, getting everything sent out, and then doing the back end work. That makes to 9 case presenters that deal with all of the cases for not just compliance, but the entire agency. The vast majority of the work that the case presenters and hearings does come from compliance, but we also handle cases that come from the licensing division, can deal with some retail agent issues, audit, if an agent wants to contest their audit results, privilege tax. So there's other things that we do as well besides compliance, but the vast majority is compliance work. And those 9 case presenters, we just got to 9, and we're working to hire that last 9th person, and we have a new case presenter starting next week. So hopefully we'll be fully staffed soon. But want to talk to you specifically about the compliance focus of hearings. So once we get the reports over from alcohol or marijuana, our division takes them, reviews them, and looks over them to see what should we do with this case, right? As you can tell from everything you've just heard, a lot of work has already been done on the side to really bring us to cases where there's enough evidence and these cases should be filed. But we're not just taking those and automatically filing those, right, either. We're still doing another review and looking at to see, is there enough here evidence to prove this case, and should this be the kind of case that we issue administrative charges on? It wouldn't be surprised, I don't have exact numbers, but we do file the majority of the cases that we receive over. And I don't think that should be surprising to you guys when you hear all the work that's being done on the front end, that a lot of the cases that are coming to hearings are the ones that we're going to be issuing charges on. We do have the ability, though, if there is a reason why we think we shouldn't file it, maybe not enough evidence, we would then send that back to compliance and let them know why we're not filing it. We can also issue a formal warning that gets sent out to them as a notice. It doesn't come with any type of administrative sanction, so no fine or civil penalty, but it's a notice on a warning on their record. So for those cases that we look at, The ones that we're going to issue a notice, it's the charging document, it's a notice to them. And that tells the licensee or the permittee when they get that mailed to them, exactly what they're being charged with. Lists the violation, what we're alleging they have done. It also recommends the penalty based on that violation. It tells them as well their due process rights. So what that is if they want to contest that notice or those charges, it tells them how they can do that. They can request a hearing, and it tells them when they have to do that by. You actually send with them in there, when we send them the notice, a form that they would fill out if they want to request a hearing. They can send that back to us as well. It lists in there in terms of the proposed penalties, OLCC has 5 categories of violation. And even within those, there's separate ones that are broken out even further. Like category 2, there's a category 2B that's specifically for all of the sales to minors. And those have their own set of fines and suspension days for the sales to minors. There's also something in there that we consider in every case, and we list that out as well. We list if there's any aggravating or mitigating factors that we've considered, and that can also it can increase your penalty or it could reduce your penalty as well based on what's occurring. And we lay that out specifically as well. And at the bottom, we tell them exactly what we're recommending for that penalty for them. And they can range from civil penalties, suspension days, all the way up to license cancellation. And as you mentioned, Commissioner Floyd, those are category 1, our most serious violation. That's where a license cancellation comes into play.
And all of those, whether it's Cat 1 all the way to Cat 5, I think is at the lowest, all those go on their commission record regardless, right?
If they're found, once the notice is issued and if there's a final order, then that would go on the record.
But if there's that's only if it's okay.
So in terms of and this slide here goes over the contested case kind of process that it actually goes to a hearing, but just so you know, that's not, as you probably know, not all these cases go to hearing. We would be so bogged down and we could really never get any work done if we were going to hearing on every single case. You guys here also see all of our settlements that we do, so those come to the commission to approve those. But a lot of the majority of our cases resolve with just a default, where a licensee or permittee receives the notice of the violation and they see that this is the fine or the suspension they're going to get, and they choose not to contest it, and then they just serve that. Also, some of our cases can resolve quicker with a fast track resolution, where those are the lower level offenses and they can pay the fine or serve the suspension earlier on. For the cases that don't do a settlement, and obviously, yes, they can then contact us after we get the notice, and if they want to do some form of settlement, we'll work with them. Those are the ones that you guys see. We don't have any this month, actually, surprisingly, but usually every month there are settlements that you will all be approving. For the smallest amount that actually go from request a hearing and go to a contested case hearing, the licensee requests the hearing, we receive that request. If it can't be settled, then it goes over to the Office of Administrative Hearings. And so it's a separate body that an administrative law judge hears that. So it's a neutral party. The OLCC, the case presenters, they present those in most cases. And then the licensee can choose to have an attorney. A lot of times they would be required to have one if they're a corporation or a business. And then they would present their evidence and witnesses as well. The ALJ will then issue a proposed order. Those are written orders, so they don't get, it's not like in a court hearing where somebody just announces what the verdict is at the time. It's usually several weeks, sometimes a month or two later after the hearing, we get issued the proposed order. At that time, we get the proposed order. Then if it is the licensee, let's say it's against them, they could file an exception to that. Those are the cases that you guys see that come before you, where they filed an exception to that proposed order. The agency can also file comments, and you could see those as well too. But if the proposed order comes out and no side, either the OLCC or the licensee permittee files an exception or comment, that just becomes the final order and it's issued. So you guys are really seeing this in terms of the hearings, a really small amount of those. I do have some stats for you guys. I'm not the best at statistics, but I wanted to give you some numbers here. So in terms of compliance cases total filed, this was in 2023, how many were filed. And remember that was not 9 case presenters, because I said we didn't have our 9. That was about 7 that were doing all that work in 2023. So 486 filed. Of that, 282 were alcohol, 204 were marijuana, We do bottle bill as well. A small amount was that you can see in their 8. And then warnings was 36 total. I don't have a specific number for you all, but a vast majority of our staff, probably of all of those alcohol and marijuana cases, are minor decoy operations because the compliance stuff, they're working hard getting those done. And so those get sent over to us and we're filing those cases. So a large amount of those cases that we're filing, you're seeing in there are minor decoy. What I pulled out though is how many are actually for those category 1 most serious violations where we're recommending cancellation. Only 4 of those 282 were for alcohol were cancellation notices, and only 9 of the 204 were cancellation notices for the marijuana program. In terms of settlements, last year there was 71 settlements that you all heard, and hearings, there was 7 total hearings that the case presenters went to that where they actually went in front of the ALJ, presented evidence witnesses, and we got a proposed order.
Can you go back to that slide, Laura, please? So out of on the alcohol and the marijuana, how many of these reached us?
In terms, so that would be the, I think it goes to this slide. So it would be either the 71. Yeah. So the 71 would be the settlements around that, because in terms of when we file it, right, there's always a time lag too, where we could have filed something in 2022 and you guys wouldn't see it until 2023 either. But I would say, we're filing, go back here. We're filing around 4, I think that's kind of a representative around 486, just compliance. And remember, that's just compliance. That doesn't count on licensing or other cases. We're filing that many, and you guys are probably seeing, again, a small amount of them that's come to the commission. That's all I have for you all. Do you guys have any questions for myself or any of us?
That was excellent. Thank you. Really great.
Yeah, I think this is, we should refer the new commissioners to, because this is super informative. And this is the kind of stuff that I think when we come on as commissioners, that it took a long time to learn, like how it goes through the whole thing. And I think, like how much goes into the process before we even see it is really important to note. Because like in the early days, I think, especially with cannabis, there was like, everyone was figuring stuff out and there was maybe need to set precedent. But I think, I think now it's so much has been figured out, and and there is such a substantial process that it is really helpful for the new commissioners to know that and just realize how much goes into this. So thank you for everything.
Maybe Dan, actually, you could put on a show for us and then put on a stage presentation.
Those are helpful.
It was pretty helpful.
And to know which ones hit, what category, what violations hit what categories, statutes that are, involved there. It's important for us to know as commissioners. The fact that, I think most all compliance stipulated cases, they have to lawyer up, right? Not just even, they're businesses, so they have to.
Unless you're like a sole proprietor or you just own it yourself, you're going to be having to get an attorney.
Yeah. And so that's important for us to know, because that's expensive. So sometimes they don't, necessarily appeal it because they have to lawyer up and there's expenses there. And so they just, it's a lot to know. And so this is very insightful and important for us as commissioners to be aware of. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Commissioner Siobhan Porter, do you have a question?
I do not. I want to thank Melanie and others. It was really thorough presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll be doing some classes on this for the new commissioners and for people like me that need the refreshers on exactly how this operates. We've got an incredible team here, and the fact that we see such a small percentage speaks pretty highly of all of you that you're able to figure that out before it gets up here. So thanks very much for everything you do for this presentation, but for the quality of the work that you do. It's incredible, and we recognize that. So anything else on this? Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Frank, are we going to do, are you going to handle Steve's stuff?
Steve's on.
Steve is on. Oh, there you are. How are you doing?
Yes.
Oh, my.
Good morning, Chair Doherty, members of the commission. For the record, Steve Robbins. I'm the Distilled Spirits Program Director. And today I'm going to share some slides with you on an update for the Chance to Purchase program and get those up and running for us. Okay. So just for a little background on this topic, back in November, Executive Director Prinz signed the Chance to Purchase policy, which was 845-301-005. And essentially what that policy was doing was it established this quarterly cadence of drawings so that Oregonians had an opportunity to buy rare distilled spirits that they may not have had access to otherwise, just due to the rarity of these products in the marketplace. That policy, I'm not going to go through all the steps of it. Rich Evans came in and shared with you all the specifics on that policy, but I did want to just call out a couple of the highlights of that policy. The first is that it asks OLC to involve an outside entity to monitor these series of events and drawings. This policy speaks specifically to using a vendor, but the understanding as Mr. Evans shared at that time, our plan is to actually use an internal auditor from another agency in the first round. Because this was all signed and passed in November, we haven't had a chance to get all of that up and running. So we're working on that, and I have a little more to update you on that a little bit later in the presentation. The Chance to Purchase policy also spoke to the fact that in addition to just providing what are called vendor allocated products through the Chance to Purchase, that was also our goal is to expand that into some regular stock items that are more difficult to get. And again, I'll expand on that a little bit as we move forward. The policy clarified who can enter, the qualifications for entering, and how often folks can enter into the Chance to Purchase events. And then it established timelines on claiming products from the winners, because as these products as folks win the opportunity to get a product, it is then shipped to their local retail store. And if they don't claim those within a certain period of time, then that product goes back into the stock for the store. The reason I bring up the policy is the policy specifically said that the Distilled Spirits Program will present highlights of the Chance to Purchase program at the February Commission meeting of OLCC. So that is why I'm here today, is that the policy calls for this update. And then on an annual basis, I will be providing a Chance to Purchase update as we move forward as well. So for the sake of this morning, I want to do two things: just recap what happened in 23, and then talk a little bit about where we're moving in 2024. Before I do that, one of the things I've learned around this topic is that words matter. There are some definitional issues I'd like to just bring up with you. They may not seem like a big deal, but sometimes these cause some confusion. So we are calling these quarterly occurrences, these quarterly events, we are calling them events. Those events include a series of drawings. And then those drawings are for items, and those items then include a number of bottles. So for each quarterly event, we'll hold multiple drawings for a number of different items, and then there are multiple bottles will be available for each of those items. And the reason I'm sharing that with you now, I hope will become more clear as I go through some of the other slides. So let's just talk about 2023. One of the things we recognized as I was preparing this presentation for you is the importance of establishing timelines. In actuality, we did not have a Chance to Purchase drawing in 2023. The last drawing we had was in December of 2022. And it was right at the end of the year. And those items were actually shipped starting in January of 2023. So we have taken the approach that we are going to report as we move forward on this based on when products were shipped to customers. Otherwise, I wouldn't have anything to talk about in terms of 2023 because we had no drawing, but we actually had a drawing at the end of 22. Those products shipped at the beginning of 2023. In that event, that contained 15 different types of distilled spirits, so 15 different items, and included 351 total bottles. The bottle availability for each item, some of those we only had 3 bottles of an item, and in one case we had 74. That was the largest. We had 74 of a specific item. We had over 300,000 entries across all products for this chance to purchase event, with a little over 23,000 individuals that were entering. Those 23,000 individuals represented 295 Oregon cities. And one of the neat things is that if you were to go to OLCC's website, there is a specific website set up for chance to purchase. And there are some really neat statistics that are out there. I won't go through all of them now. And graphics that our folks in our communications unit put together. And we're going to continue to do that. It's just some really neat stats that show you kind of the volume of and interest in this program.
Steve, can I hold you there for a sec?
Absolutely.
300,045 entries, and that was 23,000 individuals. So they're doing multiple entries. Is that how that works?
Chair Doherty, so yeah, what was happening was, again, remember there were 15 different items. So those individuals, in some cases, were signing up for multiple items. There were no limits on the number of items they could sign up for. And there was a little bit of lack of clarity as to whether or not there could be duplication in entry. And that's what the policy did for us, is it clarified all of that and has said that there are specific limits on it. And so I hope that answers your question.
That helps. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So per the policy, the first chance to purchase event for 2024 will be held prior to the end of next month. I'm not ready to share with you the specific dates yet because we've got a fairly robust communication plan that will be kicking off in the next couple of weeks. So we will be sharing this information via social media, other outlets, and letting folks know that this program will be kicking off. We'll be able to provide the specific date of the drawing. We'll be able to provide the specific dates that the system will be available for folks to enter for the drawings. And so that is coming within the next couple of weeks. We're finalizing the list right now of the products that will be available in the March 2024 chance to purchase. We are building the entrant user interface. We've had to do some rebuilding of that interface, mainly because of the policy. There are specific components of that policy that say you can only sign up for 5 items. You can only sign up if you are a resident of Oregon. And the interface will allow, if folks, depending on how they enter, it will kick folks out of the system saying, I'm sorry, you're not an Oregonian, or please go back and only choose 5 items that you will be picking. And so it has some interoperability there that is requiring us to redo that interface, and that is underway right now. As I mentioned before, we're excited to start including items that have traditionally been what I would call regular stock items. We have some items that, even though they are rare, they do come into our warehouse as a regular stock item. We will sometimes put a maximum order limit on those items, but when they come in, they are snatched up very quickly. They get out to stores and they are gone very quickly. And we have decided to help bolster this program and to give Oregonians more access to these products, that we are going to start including some of those items as well in chance to purchase. And those were items that had not traditionally been in the program. So we're excited to do that. And those items will be included in this next March 2024 chance to purchase event. We are engaging, as I mentioned before, we're engaging an internal auditor from another agency to monitor. And one of the things that we are definitely going to be doing as we move forward is tracking what we call safety stock. And I wanted to just take a moment to clarify for the commission what safety stock is. With these products, if we've only got, say, 10 bottles of this product that are available and someone wins one of those 10 bottles, if that bottle were to break in transit, that's really tough for somebody to get something that's that rare and to have won that opportunity and then through no fault of their own, product is broken. So we do hold back a very small number of what we call safety stock items. And so those are there in the eventuality that something breaks, that we have the ability to reship that product out and get it there. Now, it is very important based on history for us to track very closely and openly how much safety stock we have, where it is, exactly how, with the disposition of all of that. And then last but not least, in the event that safety stock is not utilized during the chance to purchase event, we will actually hold that product over and make it available in the next quarterly event. So that product is not going to go back to suppliers. It's not going to just kind of, just kind of disappear into the mix. We will be very clearly tracking it, and we will be putting it in the next quarter's chance to purchase so that it can get out there to Oregonians. One other thing I wanted to mention, I'm excited. We're meeting next week with Oregon Lottery. We're interested in their thoughts. Obviously, they're running all kinds of, obviously the lottery itself, but we've learned that even during COVID and other events, they have run other types of lottery and drawing events for smaller municipalities. And so they have some thoughts on this that we definitely want to pick their brain. As to whether or not they're directly involved has yet to be determined, but I did want to just let the commission know that we are talking to lottery about that as we move forward, and they may become involved or not, but looking forward to those conversations. So I think this would have been a longer presentation next year when we have more to talk about in terms of how much we're going to be doing in 2024. But since there was really not a whole lot in 2023, this isn't really that lengthy, but I'm happy to answer any questions there might be.
Just glad we're getting this clarified and getting everything sort of in policy and clarifying for the commissioners and everybody exactly how it works behind the scenes and making sure that, we can do our job and the job on the agency side is being done properly. So thank you for this. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Stephen. We're going to have a fully external auditor next year or at some point in the future rather than internal audits.
Chair Doherty, members of the commission, yes, there are really two things happening on parallel tracks here. What I'm presenting to you today is on the chance to purchase program, which is this drawing program. There was also a policy that was created that was around vendor allocations and vendor allocated product. That product, we are required in the distilled spirits program to provide data and information to the internal auditor for OLCC. And that chief audit executive, she will be coming back to the commission and sharing some information as we move into April about specifics there. But specific to your question, Chair Doherty, yes, our intent is to not use internal auditors moving forward, but to have someone that's completely outside the agency as a part of that monitoring function.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Excellent presentation. Thank you. There we go. We're good there. Thank you very much. And then are you going to other section there? I see. You're going to do.
I think I'm up next as well. I just wanted to provide a couple of quick updates on the warehouse. And then I think our Chief Information Officer is going to be providing some updates on our distilled spirit supply chain project. Very excited after many months of coming before you and saying we've almost got the contract signed for the general contractor. We have the contract signed for the general contractor for the new warehouse. So we're very excited to be able to move forward with that. We have our first meeting tomorrow where the general contractor will be in our headquarters. The architects will be there, subcontractors will be there, and we are officially kicking this project off. The next steps here are for us to really focus on what is the guaranteed maximum price for this project. It allows us to put together some of those schedules we've been wanting to do. Now we've got everybody on board. We'll be able to start locking down on specific schedules. And also, this will really help us because in state government, even though the legislature has given us limitation for bond sales, those bond sales don't all occur at once. They do those periodically. And so it's important for the Department of Administrative Services to understand what is the cash flow of a project like this so that they can sell the bonds at the appropriate times. They are anxiously awaiting to hear from us what those schedules look like so they can start thinking about how that funds are allotted back to the agency at the appropriate time. So excited to get going, and tomorrow is kickoff. So we're looking forward to it. Any questions on the warehouse?
Great work.
Yeah, good job. Thank you. We're excited as well.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll hand it off to Jeremiah.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Steve. I appreciate you allowing me to piggyback on the back of your update. So good morning, everyone. Before I get started, I want to say thank you to Chair Doherty and the rest of the commission for allowing me to come and give an update on DSSC. If you guys are not familiar with the acronym, it means Distilled Spirits and Supply Chain. My name is Jeremiah Brickhouse. I'm the Chief Information Officer here at OLCC. I've been in this role for about 4 months now. I'm not sure if you're aware of the history of it, but there was an RFP that was posted a number of months, I think, before I even joined OLCC, and we had no responses back to that. So my update today is really about what's happened since then. And so we did post out a new RFP that went out on December 5th. So I think Laura's probably going to pull that slide deck up. I got one slide to share with everyone. Okay, so we had the RFP was published out on December 5th. This was done by a bunch of great work from a lot of folks across the organization. So kind of a special thanks to Christy Scott and Steve for doing this work. They had done this way before I even actually got to OLCC. But we got the RFP out, went out on December 5th. It's for a prime vendor to help us identify a new warehouse management system. And if you're not familiar with what that would be, it's the application that actually manages the entire warehouse. That's the orders coming in as well as the orders going out and tracking all the inventory. We also have a part of this is going to be our point of sale system, which is going to be for all the agents to have a single point of sale system at all of the individual locations across the state, as well as an enterprise resourcing planning applications, better known as an ERP. And so this vendor, the prime vendor, is going to be responsible for helping us identify the right systems, as well as helping us get them all integrated together. The RFP did close on February 5th. We have received 3 proposals in total. And so we have a group, I think around roughly 15 subject matter experts that are reviewing the proposals today. We expect to have those done by March 1st. And then we have a smaller group, mainly led by executive team, that's going to be doing the final evaluation and scoring by March 15th. And hopefully we have a final decision that we can go forward with a vendor that can help us get all these applications in place. And so that was my only update for today. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Jeremiah. What's the once we get a select a vendor, what's the time frame on getting this all put together?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we have our evaluations done by mid-March. It's probably going to take 4 to 6 months to get the contracts in place and signed. And then we'll have to actively start working on getting the implementations done.
Okay. Any idea after the size of this project, how long it will take to implement? Is that
I'm gonna say maybe 13 to 14 months. I mean, we need to be able to get it implemented and tested well before live in January of 26.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just wanted to know one thing, Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Shabon-Porter.
So, thank you, Mr. Brickhouse. Are you going to get any input from the licensees regarding the implementation of the new point of sale? As far as how it's working or would work? Are you going to have like a sample group to test?
Yeah, I'm going to look to Steve because Steve, we identified the subject matter experts last week. Did we have any licensees on there?
Chair Doherty, Commissioner, these point of sale systems are going to be only in agent stores. And so the answer is yes, we have 3 agents that are participating in this process, and they are solely focused as subject matter experts on how the point of sale system works, its functionality, the flexibility it has. And we're excited to get their perspective, even on is there functionality offered by some of these vendors that we were unaware of that may be good for us to integrate into the program that we're putting together.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further? Any questions? All right. Thank you both. Good presentation. Appreciate it. We're going now to rules. Is that where you're, Danica? And welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Great. Good morning, Chair Doherty and commissioners. For the record, my name is Nicole Blase, and I am the rules coordinator for the OLCC, and happy to be joined by our Director of Licensing, Danica Foster, today. I'm here to present 2 rulemaking actions for your consideration today. Our first item is a temporary and initial action for limited tax compliance extension. I'll read our at a glance for some history on this. Last year, the OLCC and Department of Revenue were directed to take steps to require proof of tax compliance for marijuana retailers as part of the renewal, change of ownership, addition of license holders, and or new licensure processes. Since that time, the OLCC has come across situations where licensees have extenuating circumstances that have prevented them from obtaining certificates of tax compliance. This has included deaths in the family, pending legal actions, and other delays beyond the control of the licensee. In response to these situations, OLCC staff is proposing to pass temporary rulemaking to grant relief in specific situations where the licensee is trying their best to obtain a certificate of compliance while working through their issues. A licensee applying for an extension would need to meet specific requirements and provide proof that they are working to obtain their certificate of compliance. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
This is just to authorize going into rulemaking, correct? Like we're not authorizing a rule yet.
We are asking for authorization for a temporary rule, which lasts for 180 days, as well as initial action for this.
180 days, and then initial action will be the rulemaking process. Is that for my?
Yeah. Chair Doherty, Commissioner Moulidas, for the record, Danica Foster, Director of Licensing. This rule would go into effect essentially immediately. We would then, over the next 180 days, do the permanent rulemaking process. So we would hold a RAC, we do any adjustments to the requirements or language, and then it would be adopted permanently. I'll just also comment on just the reason for this is really just an evolution of us working with the industry to implement this new requirement that was put in place last year. Overall, there's been quite a bit of success. We have not yet had to inactivate any licenses yet, in part because getting into compliance means that they have to either show that they are compliant with tax obligations or simply enter into a payment plan with Department of Revenue. And so most licensees have been able to do that. We are now coming up on, under current rule, they have an additional 90 days post expiration in which to get those certificates of tax compliance. And that's where most folks are able to do that. But we're finding certain situations that are really outside the licensee's control, a legal proceeding that is have a time frame that they can't control. But they can also otherwise demonstrate to us that it's not a lack of tax payment issue, that it's a paperwork issue or a legal proceeding. And so we would like to just have the flexibility to grant extensions rather than just a harsh no at the end of that 90 days. The intention would be that it'd be very sparingly and limitedly used. The goal of this is to get the marijuana retailers into tax compliance and be able to demonstrate that. And so this would just simply be for those very limited circumstances to give a little additional time.
Yeah, I think the 180 days or the temporary thing's good, but I think we should, I'll definitely be really interested in the permanent rulemaking, just because this thing, it's a core responsibility. And if most of them are doing it, I mean, I think it's really important, like the ones that we are granting that it's fair, just because I think that's kind of where we're at now with everything. We just have to there's a lot of people that have industry that work really hard to follow the rules and pay their taxes and do that. And so, yeah, the extenuating circumstances are certainly there, but I mean, you guys know you're dealing with it day in and day out. So if you think the 180 days is needed, it's good. And I think it'll be good to, then go through the process. So good work.
Yeah, I think this supports our philosophy of partnership in these things where extenuating circumstances like that we've got to be flexible. Mm-hmm. Any other discussion on this? Then may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Kern's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who?
Commissioner Kern's.
Go ahead, Commissioner Kern. I can't see you.
Oh, I was just going to make a comment that I do, but Chair Doherty, I said it right, which was that it's a new thing, and I know that it was one of those things that that we like to see, helping people where we can to come into compliance. And I do know that this was there. It sounds like in the review of materials that there are the extenuating circumstances aren't people complying, that there may be some circumstances where they are working towards compliance and are there. It's just bureaucracy sometimes gets in the way. And so I think that's where we want to support our businesses where we can. And this will give us time to say, do we need to have some of these exceptions if they're waiting for paperwork? And I'm not entirely sure of exact circumstances, but in my review of the materials, it looks like there might be some things that are out of these licensees' control in trying to get compliance. So I'm very supportive in that. So,
thank you, Commissioner Kern. Any other discussion? I would entertain a motion then.
Chair.
Commissioner.
I move to temporarily amend OAR 845-025-1190, effective February 16th, 2024 to July 1st, 2024. Initiate rulemaking in Division 25 related to this action and to hold a rulemaking hearing at staff's discretion.
Is that a second, Commissioner?
Yeah, a second.
Any further discussion? Laura, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus?
Yes.
Chair Doherty?
Yes. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item for today is initial action for our Cannabis and Alcohol Management Program, otherwise known as CAMP, rule implementation. Throughout 2024, the Commission will be rolling out phases of the new Cannabis and Alcohol Management Program. CAMP will provide seamless functionality for marijuana and liquor licensing and permits. The Commission will need to modify rules in order to meet program deadlines and ensure compliance.
Staff is initiating general rulemaking so that the ongoing system implementation can continue, while staff evaluate the need to update rule language to support the licensing system functionality. Any questions?
I'll just say we did the training, we had the presentation last time. It's a very impressive system. It's going to be a huge improvement. So it's good that we're making sure the rules jive with whatever it can do, because I think it's like we're going from a really archaic system to a really good one. And so maybe not everything meshes up. So great work. Excited for it.
Yeah. Anything else? We have a motion.
Chair.
Commissioner Floyd.
I move to initiate rulemaking and to hold a rulemaking hearing at staff's discretion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Laura, would you take a roll, please?
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Dupont Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes,
Yes.
Commissioner Molinas,
Yes.
Chair Doherty.
Yes. Motion carries. Greg Prince, our Executive Director.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. Appreciate it.
The last item is a legislative update. I think Rosie is on remotely. Rosie, if you need me, there she is.
Hello, Rosie. Welcome. I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
We can't hear you.
I am on mute. There you go. Thank you. Hi. For the record, I am Rosie Shatkin. Good morning to everyone. Chair Doherty. I'll be brief. I'm going to be rushing over to the Capitol in a second, but I'll be brief. I think what I really want to share with you this morning is really sort of the procedural part of the legislation that we are advocating for. So there are a couple of things. I'll go over sort of an overview of the session, the legislation that we're advancing on behalf of OLCC and legislation that are out there that impacts OLCC. So just briefly, as you're probably all aware, agencies do not get bills during the short session. The reason is that generally we get all the legislation we ask for through the governor's office during the long session. But this session we generally don't. But there are a couple of issues that came up, and we worked with the governor's office and legislators in advancing these. I'll go over the bills that impact us, but we're not necessarily advancing. One is 4013. That bill is relating to the bottle bill program. That bill essentially requires the environmental quality from enforcing a provision that will push the wine bottle folks into starting that program in 2025. The second bill is House Bill 4093 that requires one of our commissioners to have a public health background. Both those bills, we have not taken a position, and those are easy to kind of just dispense with for our purposes here. The two other bills that we have taken a big position on, and I will be at the Capitol for any questions from the legislators. The first bill is House Bill 4121. That's behalf of the House Committee on Judiciary for Rep. Jason Kropp, worked with a number of stakeholders, legislators on this bill, and really it is a technical fix for us. Again, I'll be brief because there's a lot of provisions within this bill going up to about 15 different sections. For us, we are interested in ensuring that a number of the provisions that came out of House Bill 3000 that will continue with enforcement around illicit marijuana continues. The second piece of that that's important for OLCC is the hemp and registration and labeling, allowing the OLCC to oversee registration of hemp product, intoxicating hemp product. And so that has been on the table for a while, and Representative Wallen has been championing this issue for the last several sessions. For the most part, we also have a really big technical fix bill for alcohol. This is for our alcohol delivery bill, and work with a number of our colleagues internally to ensure that we can fix something that we did not get in the 2023 session, which will allow the OLCC the authority to implement a fee for the third-party delivery folks, so like the Uber driver, not the drivers themselves, but the company, that we can implement a fee towards them for them to register with the OLCC to be able to do business within the state of Oregon for delivery of alcohol specifically. The other provision in that bill is a temporary server permit. This is kind of a public safety portion of the bill that allows us to have an eye on those servers that are serving alcohol, but they're going through that intermediary stage where they have a temporary license, not the full license to serve alcohol. So this allows them in statute. It also helps with the CAMP program. We've heard a lot about that today. That once they go into the system and they go online, they will be able to register online within the OLCC and on CAMP. I will leave it there for any questions from the commissioners. Again, thank you for this opportunity. There is a lot going on this session, and it's moving at a very rapid pace. Each week represents about 2 months of work, so folks are feeling it.
Yeah. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Rosie, I'm sorry. Can you explain the temporary server permit? For some reason, I was merging the delivery bill with that, but that's separate on its own. And you'd mentioned CAMP in that. Can you explain that one a little bit more for me?
So the server permit, I believe, for a lot of the licensing part of OLCC, is taking a while to move folks from the temporary into the full permit process, because we did not have an eye on the temporary servers, the ones who are serving alcohol, say in a bar, behind a bar, in a restaurant. We're not able to capture those folks if something goes wrong, if they come into serving a minor or someone overly intoxicated. We don't have any way of seeing those folks within our system. So this captures those temporary servers so we can see them within the system. It also aligns with other servers within the licensing process, so that once they go into, we switch over into the CAMP system, there is a bit of alignment with everyone being able to register within CAMP.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, great job. Do you have some comments here?
And then thanks, Rosie. So Rosie updated you on the policy bills, and then last week, Colin, Neelan, and I presented on the budget aspect. Thank Commissioner Militas for showing up for moral support behind us. So we updated that the headquarters and warehouse, as you know, we've got those separated. The warehouse is contract is signed. The land is purchased. We're going to be working with J.E. Dunn to build a warehouse in Canby. We did have one budget shift. The conveyance system needs to have more resources for it, about $9 million. We asked for a shift from the warehouse build to the conveyance system. We also let our staff know earlier this month, and then we let the legislature know we found a permanent home for the headquarters for the OLCC at the Portland State Office Building, which is just adjacent to the Oregon Convention Center. And last but not least, we gave an update on the revenue forecast for OLCC, and it's very similar to what Danelle and the folks from the distributors said. Our distilled spirits revenue had been going up really historically for decades, and then during COVID went up double digits. And Colin's been monitoring it. Peter Nordyke's been monitoring it. We've been monitoring it. And it was time to adjust that because for the last 30 months, it's been flat. And so we wanted to make sure that the legislature knew that. And that again is this trend we're seeing in the alcohol industry. So we made that presentation to the legislature as well as what Rosie's tracking with the policy bills.
Okay. Anything else?
No, the only thing I wanted to do is do some thank yous. So I just thank the compliance folks. I think that part of our work is seen by our licensees, but sometimes unseen by the commission. So it was great to have all the regional folks here and to have the directors here to bring that to light. It's an important part of what we do. It is an important part of administering, our enforcement, and it's done justly and fairly, and we can handle it, thankfully, without formal action by you all in most cases. So I just wanted to thank the commission for your attention to that. Thank you to the staff for a great presentation. And I think it gives context. It gives context to what you do see and what does emerge. And then I wanted to thank Steve had mentioned working with lottery. They do lotteries a lot. And so I want to thank Director Mike Wells. He's offered to help us as we work on the chance to purchase lottery. I want to thank Scott Emery at the DAS CIO, so the statewide CIO, did so much work with us to get the distilled spirit supply chain to where it is, so where we're going for this request for proposal that we feel really good about. And then the last but not least, probably the most important thing legislatively is Commissioner Warren is on with us, but we have our three new commissioners. So Commissioner Warren, Commissioner Mary Ellen Glenn, and Commissioner Nick Chowry. And so they are approved and getting through that process and will be with us next month. So welcome and congratulations to those three new members.
I want to piggyback on what you said about the staff here, because getting this education to us, the process, I went to the show, the play you put on contested cases, which if you gave me the paperwork to read through how contested cases work, I'd be sound asleep within 30 seconds. But that was well done. And it, again, it gives me more appreciation for that process, the complication, the talented people we have there, and the hard work it goes into that before we get to see it up here. So kudos to all of you. So thank you very much. And with that, I think we will adjourn. Commissioner, good question.
Chair.
Oh, you got a question? Sorry.
No, I thought that Steve Robbins, that he sailed into this position and has provided, it's just seamless. I've just been acknowledging that. And the compliance folks, I am really overwhelmingly grateful for the education, but I need more. I'm asking for more. But lastly, also Rosie, I do not know how she is able to so easily give us these summaries and work with the governor's office and all the legislators. And from what I've heard, the legislators seem to have an amazing rapport with her. So thank you for keeping us in the loop and managing and explaining or supporting the camp program, which I think is going to be really positive. I really appreciate that. And for taking on, once again, the tour for Columbia Distributing for all of us, the new commissioners especially. That is an amazing operation. I'm really impressed by that. And I think that their operation, or knowing how their operation works, will greatly benefit us with our understanding of the new warehouse. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate that education.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do I see any other hands up here? We keep missing them. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned.